It has to be the weirdest vintage we've had. Every season is the same but different, but this one was exceptionally different.
The season at least was shaped from ongoing drought from the last couple of years, and also the two significant frost events we had early in the growing season. This meant that we had small yields and the vines were a little bit under stress, but the quality of fruit was very high.
Didn't ever think it was going to be a really big year, because after the drought last year we'd had quite diminished growth and we'd laid out less buds anyway, and less cane length, so we never were anticipating a big crop.
Relatively damp start, bit of rain through spring, early summer, and then no rain for 4 months. So pretty dry.
Yeah.
Got pretty barren. Started to look like a bit of a desert.
Well, it sort of started off all right with a lot of sunny weather, and it had been a very mild winter, which wasn't really such a good thing as it turned out, and we seemed to have about 13 ground frosts in September, and then we had near frost. We survived that one. It was about minus 1.7, but then in October we had a frost in the lower terraces and the dips and the hollows, and it was like a snap frost of about minus 1.6 at the weather station.
We've been here 31 years, since 1989, and in all those growing seasons we've only had 2 damaging frosts, which is remarkable, and that's due to the katabatic air movement down the valley. We had late frosts and early bud burst. Nationally there was early bud burst by about 2 weeks. A greater range of varietals had burst and were vulnerable at an earlier time in the year, coupled with a later frost. So you get a nasty kind of overlap where you've got a lot of varietals being early, a frost being late, coupled with the most bizarre frost we've ever seen since we've been here. Very, very cold, a lot of snow in the hills to the northwest, and it came through as a northwest breeze almost. Bizarre, as you get, we've never seen that before. And we've never seen a normal frost in a normal time zone for frosts like that. Sauvignon Blanc in Hell Block was unaffected. And the upper terraces seem to be unaffected by the frost.
It was our first real frost event in not how many years? 30 odd years now, 32 years they've been here now, the wines.
We've been saying 30 for a while.
Yeah, time to update. It's like the population of Amberley never changed from 1200. The actual overall season was good because the whole season ran pretty well. I don't think we had any terrible windy periods, which we can have. No wind damage. Nothing really broke down. Everything trucked on through. Sprayer kept on going. The mowers kept on going. The trimmer kept on going.
I wasn't even here for the frost, so we don't have to talk about that.
Yeah.
Wasn't even in the country for that frost.
We've done it with a bit of rainfall through the season. Keep the irrigation topped up, but we got through, but there was only a small crop from it. I think I'm right in saying that it was our earliest ever proper start to the harvest.
The year before we'd picked under COVID and got by with about 5 or 6 people, so we ran a small crew and just kept at it, and basically brought it home quite easily with quite efficient pick, because it's still the same amount of area to cover and same amount of ground to move over.
The start of harvest for us was reasonably early this year. Wasn't our earliest harvest, but pretty close. We were on the 17th of March. Pinot was the variety that was tracking along early, significantly early compared to some of the other varieties. A feature of the whole vintage over all the fruit was that the fruit was very clean, and that's probably due to like the drought conditions we've had. Small berries is one of the features we saw in the reds.
So we had a pretty good dry run through with easy picking, and picked a really little intensely flavoured interesting crop. Sort of pretty hard won really. You won't see many vintages like this in a long time.
2021 was low volume, very intense small berries, and make really interesting wine.
Fruit quality is good. I gather they were really happy with it at the winery. There wasn't any disease there at all that I found.
Super concentrated fruit, and going through ferment you could see like the tannins coming through early, the colour was coming through early. So you had to be really gentle with our Pinot ferments this year, not to over extract. With our white varieties, they sort of came on all together, but it was more of a case of like letting the acids drop and come into balance with the sugar. We had time to think about our picks and really sort of like leave them till when they were actually ready, rather than, oh, we've got to get this off now, otherwise going to, lose it or whatever. Yeah, so Chardonnays we just left for a long time. Same with the Rieslings, we were able to get both Hell Block and the Dry made this year, and then the Savvy, and they were all really clean and all the ferments were really expressive, super tropical notes in there, but still low alks, like all lowish alks, sort of that 13.5% for most of the big table wines, and pretty happy how everything went.
So Willie joined us in spring last year and has had the opportunity to see the whole season develop as winemaker. So he's been out in the vineyard keeping an eye on the development of everything.
Probably trying to piece it together, being new to the winery myself and Willie being new,
Yep.
and both of us just being like, how are we going to do this when neither of us have worked here before during harvest? So that was pretty exciting in itself. We all worked really well together as a team, I reckon, and did what we could with the harvest. I mean, the fruit quality is great, yield's down, but everything's turning out really well.
Tristan Van Shortwick was cellar hand for the vintage. Because it's a small vintage in volume doesn't mean there's less work, because everything's still individual small ferments, and so the work's the same, but you're just working with smaller volumes, which really means that you've just got to be far more specific about what you're doing. Lower volume is sort of a larger risk as well, so the team did really, really well with a strange season, and the wines are looking quite remarkable at the moment as they develop.
So this year in the winery was my first year as cellar hand, which was really exciting. I've been in the vineyard for all of my wine industry related work, so it was a good change. Got to just see the side of winemaking, which was really exciting. Yeah, the vibe in the winery was really good. I think it was everyone's first vintage at the Beaumont that worked in the winery, so it was new to everyone a bit. Yeah, obviously Willie and Emily had done a lot of winemaking before, so they knew what they were doing. But yeah, it was the vibe was just so good. Gets through a few of the longer days. It's good, just good team. And there was time for Willie and Emily to explain things to me and why they did it, but still enough to get done and work to be done, so I could get a good understanding of what's going on. Yeah, it was a good energy in the winery, I think, is what I'd describe it as. Yeah, it's always the crew that makes or breaks a job, and it's definitely the crew, both in the vineyard and in the winery, were amazing this year. So definitely added to the just the positive vibes around the vintage, which was special. Yeah.
Picking crew was good. Didn't have a big crew, but we had a nice crew. Yeah, like I said, because of the crop was a bit down in size, so yeah, we had enough people, despite the lack of backpackers, etc. tripping around the country, so we had mostly people who'd been here before. That's good.
Yeah, I'd say the wine that I'm most keen to try after being involved in the winemaking is definitely the Pinot, just because that was a lot more handwork involved, with cap management and all the dig outs and the presses and all of that. I think there was a lot more handwork that went into that.
We're getting pretty excited about also the Riverbone again, having been able to make some really interesting barrel ferments and kind of like a few funky tanks of Sav, and see what we can do to have the Riverbone back.
Going back to the Riesling, that would be quite good, because it was absolutely clean as a whistle, but I always like trying the Pinots as well.
The Rieslings will be great. I'm looking forward to them.
Pinot's looking good. We've got quite a variety of differences between the different clones, so that'll be really good come blending. We've got some of the clones are more towards that like savoury spectrum, some of them are pretty like vibrantly fruity, like the 115 this year, so it'll give us a lot of options with blending.
But no, definitely keen for all of them. I think there's just something special about opening a bottle of wine and trying it and knowing that you contributed to that, especially knowing that I was out in the vineyard last year growing the grapes, and then being in the winery helping make the wine. So now when I drink the Bone Line 2021 vintage, it'll be definitely a special wine for sure.
June's just been the warmest June we've ever had on record. We might be in for another warm winter. which would be a wee bit disappointing because then we're going to have an early bud burst again. I'd rather have later bud burst. Yeah.
I mean, the whole planet has to work out how to live as humans through this and how to keep growing enough food for ourselves, and viticulture is just part of that. And in this place, it's an extreme site anyway, so we are quite prone to that stuff.
Yeah, so in all a small effort, but a good reasonable one, and the team did the usual good work and did the job with a good clean run. So at the moment we're just going out and pruning again and starting all over again in the hope that something a bit more substantial happens next year.
So we gave the vines a bit of time to throw their leaves and have a wee bit of a rest, and then got into the pruning.
So to sum up the 2021 harvest, I would say that it'll be remembered for having low yields, affected by frost, and I mean it was definitely our smallest harvest we've had here for the last 30 years. But the fruit quality, like the flavours and what the wine has given us, is top notch.
So far, the wines are looking remarkable. By sharing the wine, it's sharing the experience of us in that time.